Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our virtual Wellfleet Library presentation with John Clayton, amazing local author, here to present his book, Parkinson's Blues. When John called me several months ago, or close to a year ago, about presenting the book this summer, the idea was that he would be having an event in our meeting space, and that is what I had hoped for, and I'm sure that's what a lot of you had hoped for as well. But as I like to say, the silver linings of a lot of what is going on here is that now we can have more people from all over than we would if we just had our meeting room open to locals only. So welcome from all over the place. We have people here who are known to John, and one of my favorite things is watching our speakers and authors and presenters as their friends and colleagues enter the Zoom room and say hi. And that's been such a joy tonight for me to see John, you reuniting with people virtually here in our library space. This book is absolutely stunning. I had the honor last year of reading a chapter, and it absolutely brought me to tears. For those of you that have read John's work before and know him as a writer, you know already what a fine writer he is and how absolutely brilliant at his craft. The idea that something so personal as this illness that has touched him, and now he is writing about it, it's very incredible, and it's a very special, wonderful experience that we're going to be able to have, to be able to hear John reading this to us and living this with him right now. And I feel very honored that he is giving this gift to us. The book, as I said, is called Parkinson's Blues, Stories of My Life, and it's divided into short vignettes, and we will be hearing one of those tonight. I just want to introduce John to you, and then I will turn it over to him. John J. Clayton has published 9 volumes of fiction, both novels and short stories, and his stories have appeared in many major literary magazines and over 20 times in commentary. They have won prizes in O. Henry Prize Stories, Best American Short Stories, and the Pushcart Prize Anthology. Radiance, a collection of stories, was a finalist for the National Jewish Book Award. Clayton grew up in New York City. For much of his career, he has taught modern literature and fiction writing as professor at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Please join me in welcoming John Clayton to our virtual Wellfleet Library space. John, you should be able to unmute yourself. You should be able to do that. Let me see if I can help you.
I did it.
You got it.
I got it. Okay. Okay. I want to thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer is the director of the Wellfleet Library. Can you hear me okay? Should I talk louder, or is it okay? Okay. For sponsoring this Zoom reading, I want to also mention Nat Harold, who said that he wanted to give a discount on my book. He's in Amherst, Massachusetts, and he's part of the consortium of book dealers called bookshop.org that you might want to know about, because You don't have to go to Amazon. You can support the local book dealers. And I want to thank everybody for coming so much. I'm so delighted to see everybody. I'll be reading for just 15 minutes and then opening up this virtual reading to discussion. My book, Parkinson's Blues, is not just about Parkinson's. It's about the way that what I call the dark unexpected takes over your life in a form shaped by your childhood. In my early 80s, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's. It didn't do the usual thing with the trembling. It was more mild than that. It left me exhausted. It became impossible to write. I didn't know how I could write. I sat at a desk and did what I could. And gradually a new form came to me. I knew it had to be about Parkinson's, but I didn't want to write anecdotes about Parkinson's. So the new form was freer than my usual stories, freer in structure. They were crazy. They'd start here and they'd move there. And I was really following and saying, what is going on? Does that make any sense? That doesn't relate to that. I played with the craziness. I began writing Nobody Expects, now called Parkinson's Blues. Here's how I felt. Nobody expects. In a Monty Python skit, someone in a drab living room complains about being nagged by questions. I didn't expect the Spanish Inquisition, he complains. Suddenly, Michael Palin in red 16th century costume bursts into the room. Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. Who expects the onset of Parkinson's or cancer or a stroke or, God forbid, the loss of a child? The terrible surprise isn't limited to Parkinson's. It's the existential condition of everyone's life. My sketches are tragic, but they're also funny. I've tried to allow that to take place and not make this a literature of the victim. I linked the experience of PD with experiences from childhood and the hope that we can grow spiritually in the midst of the terrible, the dark, unexpected. I'm going to read one story, slightly cut. Because you don't know the context of the story, some of you do, but many of you don't, I want to offer one piece of background. My father worked for and was bullied by his wealthy younger brother, Lloyd. Lloyd was born Louis Cohn, changed his name to Lloyd Clayton, and paid the family to change their name to Clayton. At one point, he bullied my father into going out to California to take care of their father. And so my father, during the beginning of the Second World War, was away 3 months, 6 months, and then 9 months in California. And my mother was going crazy, was disgusted and enraged. Okay, that's the background of part of the story. Now I'm going to read let's see, just a minute. How to Heal Parkinson's. Ladies and gents, don't tell a soul, but the fact is you can't do a hell of a lot about healing Parkinson's. We bourgeois, in the Flauberian sense, We're so used to making demands on reality when something isn't going right. We don't take no for an answer. Saul Bellow writes somewhere that being bourgeois means figuring out as you slip and fall on a neighbor's icy sidewalk the insurance money you'll win. But Parkinson's is not like a twisted ankle or a broken window or a leaky pipe. No, indeed, ladies and gents, it's not. I'm going to fight this. I'm going to fix this. A joke. It's going to get worse and worse. We speak of illness through the metaphor of war, the battle against cancer. So sorry you have a health challenge, a friend wrote. Some challenge. Like unarmed slaves challenging wild beasts in the arena. The joke is that while it's foolish to think you're going to beat a sickness like Parkinson's, you're just not going to give up trying. So I spend my money on micronutrients and a treadmill. I remember to stand straight and practice my balance. Mornings I pray. Doctors don't know everything. I nap. I nap again. Waking, I hear the voices from another room, those friendly baritone voices in my head. I pretend to imagine that they're discussing my case. What then, I imagine them asking, is to be done? I monitor my exhaustion, though I know what a mistake that is. Monitor is cognate with admonish, admonition, a warning. But why warn when you can't change anything? What's to be done? What's best is not to do. Do and you're undone. Symptoms intensified. I learned as a child to exhibit my pains and illnesses to my mother. Learned from my mother to monitor, to groan, to sigh. As a child, I developed stomach aches, headaches. I brought them to her. I learned to pay attention to my pain. I wanted her attention too, and then became angry when she gave it. As I'm remembering our talks, I must have been 8 or 9 years old, but we always talked like this. Why, my mother said, should a boy like you have headaches? My son, why should my son have a headache? She tried out remedies on me, and she asked, did this help? Did that help? Until I said I was feeling better, she didn't stop. I wanted her to stop. I didn't want her to stop. She suffered and taught me to express my suffering. She drank boiled water without tea to ease the gas in her stomach, the heartburn. She gave herself enemas. She sighed. As God is my witness, you should never know how your mother suffers. Stop, stop, I do know. You never stop telling me. Don't worry, I'll stop soon enough. You want me to stop? Should I stop for good? I shook my head, parodying the way she shook her head. She shut her eyes. If I asked, what's the matter, Mom? What's hurting? She'd sigh. The matter? Why? Nothing is the matter. Isn't that what you think? Everything is sweet. My life is so sweet. But if I didn't ask, she'd say, you're all I've got in this world. Don't you know that? And you don't ask how your mother is? Don't you want to know? Of course I want to know. You think your mother is a complainer. I laughed. Well, don't you complain a lot? She ignored this. I've got a swell marriage. Simply swell. My husband goes out to California for months and months to take care of his father. Who wouldn't complain? You're right, but he's back now. Grandpa's dead. You think your father is such a pleasure when he's home? Let me tell you a secret. This is between us. Your father means well, but perhaps, just perhaps, he married the wrong woman. As perhaps, just perhaps, I married the wrong man. I should have stayed in the business. That's the truth. In fashion, the fashion industry, in haute couture. If I called old man Bonwit on the phone this morning, he'd ask me to come back and work for him. Well, why don't you? You don't think so? You think I couldn't do it? I didn't mean that, Mom. Why don't you? The fashions have passed me by a long time ago, my darling. She sighed and nodded and sighed. And am I strong enough to take a position? You know what that entails. Besides, don't I have to take care of you and your father? What would it mean to stop trying to fix myself, to let go and simply live? Why is it so seductive to monitor my symptoms when I know it doesn't help? Would it be like giving up my mother? So, isn't it time, for God's sakes? Don't I at least need to give up my mother's strategy? But that's wrong. It wasn't really a strategy. She wasn't trying to end her suffering. She needed to feel it, or else she would have gone crazy, and she needed me to feel it. When, 25 years ago, I began to light candles on Friday nights, I remember my mother turning to the shelf in our kitchen where she lit candles, turning and murmuring something in Yiddish. But they weren't Shabbat candles she lit. They were memorial glasses. The glasses would burn all night, all day. We'd use the empties as drinking glasses. My mother grew up in an Orthodox household. How could she not know the difference? And if they really were yahrzeit lights, 24-hour memorial candles, who was she mourning? And why only on Friday nights? Was it just a mistake? She held her hands over her eyes and wept, though on Shabbat we're supposed to be joyous. She was solemn as she nodded at the candles. She never explained. Now I think I understand. She was mourning her lost Jewish family, her sweet childhood, her lost hopes, mourning her stifled self that once held such promise. Shabbat was the time for her to face irretrievable loss. If my father came into the kitchen and saw her lighting the candles, he'd slap the air twice, quick, back and forth, as if to expunge a stench, and say, "What a load of old-fashioned crap!" He was irritated. He was counting the cost of the candles. My mother would turn to me and say, "You hear that? A real Jewish gentleman. What a charming, cultivated man I married." "And you," he snapped, "ain't you some charming woman in that dirty house dress of yours?" But the truth is, she was a charming woman. She had her ways. I remember this. I must have been 9 or 10. We're sitting near the back on a Madison Avenue bus, coming home from shopping or from the doctor's. She points up at an office building. Right away, I know what's coming, and it's embarrassing as hell. I look away. "Look, mein Benny," she calls out in thick, pretend Yiddish accent. "Look at the big buildings." "Shh, Mom, please. What's the matter? You're so ashamed by your immigrant mother, the way she talks." Passengers gave me dirty looks, or I imagine they do. your poor mother. Is it possible they don't know she's kidding? It's possible. This is during the Second World War. Say 1944. New Yorkers are used to refugees. Me, I can hear the put on. It's so obvious. But my mother's first language was Yiddish. Her accent can be as authentic as she wants to make it. So, Benny, my boy, you don't want to be seen with your immigrant mother who loves you. She's kidding, I say loudly, listening to a listening public. My name isn't Benny. She's kidding. We're Americans. No one's looking our way. It's time to change for a crosstown bus. My mother says to everyone in upper-class British accent with clear articulation, "Lovely weather we're having, don't you agree, Benjamin?" Look, I can turn myself into an immigrant or a privileged, educated American Brit. Just like that, I can invent myself and reinvent myself, and you, my son, can be my audience. She couldn't stand it, not being the great success, the brilliant lady upon whom the lights of New York shone. She thought she'd married a man of wealth and power who could give her the life she demanded. She was so deeply dissatisfied. She lived in a story of the gap between how she wanted to live and how she was actually living. I could say that her rage, unassimilated, not metabolized, exhausted her, but perhaps exhaustion was her unconscious strategy. She learned to fall into exhaustion and pain as a way of handling, quieting her rage. She taught me to monitor myself. Then what's to do? Can I unlearn? Can I suffer my exhaustion without monitoring it? Can I be like the three-legged dog that makes do, who doesn't whine, doesn't focus on the missing limb? The last few years of her life, while my father became weaker and she sported a cane, my mother's rage quieted, her exhaustion diminished. They became a peaceful couple. When my wife and I visited, there was no shouting, no shutting and opening windows so the neighbors wouldn't hear or would hear. She spoke sweetly to him. "Chuck, dear, would you like a nice sandwich?" He didn't complain. She didn't complain. I couldn't understand. Somehow, she no longer had to feel her terrible dissatisfaction. She was content. The fighting was over. Then she became a peaceful widow, and she lived another story entirely. Poor fool. That's how she remembered him. But the words were said with tenderness. And when I reminded her that there had been hard times in her life, in our life together, she'd say, "What do you mean hard? I've been a happy wife and mother." Yes, there were quarrels, but what married couple doesn't have their quarrels? After my father died, my Uncle Lloyd changed. He became a responsible brother-in-law. He moved my mother into a pretty little apartment on Central Park West. He paid the rent. Once a week, he'd send his chauffeur to take my mother shopping. "It's wonderful that Lloyd takes care of you," I said. "Well, and don't I deserve it?" She smiled. "But I must say he's been a little bit of all right. Besides, Lloyd knows the kind of woman I am." The fighting was over, and with it the self-torture. It was over not because she was defeated. She had declared a truce. No, better than a truce. She pretended to herself there was no struggle. There'd never been a struggle. She was simply the gracious lady she'd always imagined herself. What is to be done? Of course. A lesson from my mother. Stop fighting the loss. Change the story. Can I eliminate my exhaustion? No. Can I treat it as simply the way things are? Just as I can't, no matter how hard I'll try, run a marathon or play in the NFL. Can I accept this incapacity? Will it help if I refuse to accept it? What's to do? Maybe no more than tell myself that this exhaustion and all the other joys of Parkinson's, they're simply who I am now. Would that be lying? That's it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to talk any more about the book, or did you want to go right into some kind of Q&A?
Q&A will be fine.
Okay. There are about 100 people here, and the best way for me to moderate a Q&A is if you all use the raise hand feature
Right.
that Zoom provides. And you can find that if you scroll to where if you're on a computer and it says participants, and you click on that, on the bottom, you will see an option for raising a hand. If you're on a device and you touch the screen, you will see an option for raising your hand. And that is the best way that I can see you, because I have 4 pages of people to scroll through, and it is, I can't really see you. So I'm seeing some of you are starting to raise your hand. I will call on you in the order that you're raising your hand. I also have some people who emailed questions in advance, and you are welcome to put questions in the chat and I can read those to John.
Should I put this on gallery view or what?
You could do whatever you want. I will, I'll,
Okay.
Okay, but the first question is from Roy. If you want to ask your question, you can unmute yourself.
Roy?
Hi, John.
Roy?
Where are you?
John, I don't know. Outer space somewhere.
Okay.
Can you turn your camera on?
No, the camera's not on.
Yeah.
Well, no, whatever. I was on, but anyway, John, of course, I've read the book, as you know, and read it very carefully. You and I have talked about it. But hearing you read it, my dear, oh my, you are the characters, and it brings the whole thing into life. The book was moving it up, but this was very moving. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Roy.
Now I'd like you to do the rest of the book. Why not?
Right. Yeah.
Why not?
Okay.
Tamara, I saw down here.
I have a couple of people. I have Paula Green.
You must be on another page.
I didn't have a question.
There you are.
Yeah, but I didn't have a question. I've got a lot of thanks and appreciations, but no question.
Okay. Andrea Hollander.
Hello, Andrea.
We can't hear you. You have to unmute yourself.
Thank you for reminding me that.
There you are.
John, I met you your first year of teaching at Boston University. And I learned from you then that you were working on a scholarly book about Saul Bellow. And you moved from being a scholar, researcher, lover of literature, great teacher, to a writer of fiction, short stories, which I've read all of, and novels. And now you have moved to memoir. And there's truth in all of that. There's truth at the heart of all of it. And there's passion. at the heart of all of it. So what I'm interested in is if you, at this point, having just published this book of memoir essays, I guess you could call them, which, and I've read whatever the essays so far that you've sent to friends via email. So I'm interested in the journey from lover of literature and lover of bellow to writing your own work, to writing with in the guise of nonfiction.
Wow, that's a hard one. It's really hard. Bella was my teacher in some sense, even though I may not have agreed with his politics. But he,
you know, am I wrong in saying that our two families?
Hello, Andrea, I've lost you.
I'm still here.
There you are. Okay. I was writing fiction during the 60s when I was doing my doctorate, and I feel like it was a wonderful combination. And I learned to get stronger. I remember that Sophocles, when he became 80, was sued by his son for not giving up his patrimony, for not giving, and he went to court with it, and Sophocles read Oedipus at Colonus, and that was the end of the suit. Yeah, but I believe in that my better work is as I got older and had more to say, more to not say is so awful. I had more to feel, more, and I brought that to my teaching as much as I could, and to my own writing. I can't imagine myself going on from this point. I can't see what I'm going to do. It feels like so problematic to not write, and yet I don't want to fake it. I guess that's all I'm going to say on this. Right now.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Andrew.
Does anyone else have questions? I did have someone that emailed me before the event who has Parkinson's. She's had it for 23 years, and she wanted to know about your own health, and if you're on any special diets, if you have an exercise regimen, and how you're taking care of yourself now.
Well, first of all, this book isn't really about Parkinson's, but what's happening to me in Parkinson's is I'm grateful that I didn't start it in my 50s or 60s. It's a hard road to hoe. I'm exhausted every day, and towards the end of the day, I start to pick up a little energy. I exercise every day, and there are all these wonderful programs for exercise, dance programs, boxing, bicycling, spin cycle, what do you call it? Spinning. But I don't do those. I just do the exercises that were suggested at Boston University for Parkinson's. I don't do any now. I don't do anything special, and even the afternoon walks. I take walks every day, or almost every day. But I'm a writer. I'm not a doctor or a patient. Primarily, I'm a writer.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I think people just wanted to know how you're doing.
Yeah.
Martha Collins.
Hello, Martha.
Hi, John. Thank you for the gorgeous reading. You just now said it's not really about Parkinson's. What I loved about what you read is that it's for all of us. I just typed in that phrase, the dark unexpected, into the chat. And then you said shortly after that, express the hope that we can grow spiritually in the context of the terrible. And we are in such a state of the terrible, all of us now. We are living in a dark unexpected, and your story just spoke so deeply to me on that level as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha.
Thanks, Martha.
Yeah, I can't find the raise your hand feature, so I just unmuted myself. Is that okay?
Oh, okay.
Sure.
I was a student of John's at Boston University, and John, I do want you to know that there's a number of us from DGE who have stayed in touch over the years. Probably at least a dozen of us that, including Fred Hayes, who I saw earlier. And we've stayed in touch not only because of who we are personally, but because of who our mentors were you and Marilyn Pitzley and Julian Baird.
Yeah.
And I do want you to know that that you're still meaningful to us every single day. Whenever we talk about the times that we shared at Boston University with you and those other professors, and even Dr. Blaustein, believe it or not. You're still a part of our lives, John, and you're still inspirational to us. And I just wanted you to know that. I did some work with Michael J. Fox to raise money for Parkinson's with Cam Neely and also Dennis Leary, the comedian. And I remember Michael J. Fox pulled me over at one time and he said, you know, James, Parkinson's is a lot like going for a ride with teenagers. And I said, oh, really? He said, yeah. He says, you don't know how fast you're going to go and you never know where you're going to end up. But my question for you really is, you know, because it's such a dramatic story that you just read, and it's so interesting to see you go from your challenges and then and your challenged world and connect with the world that the challenges your mother had, and especially her dreams of being in fashion and not ending up doing that. Where on the other hand, your dreams as a writer, you've become an extremely great writer. How did you, what was it, what connected you at that moment to your mother trying to face her challenges?
My mother was very important to me, of course. She used to type my stories when I was 6 years old, 7 years old. She'd say, and, but are you saying, what was the connection between my?
Well, no, it was just interesting to me that in the face of your challenges, you would kind of identify and kind of become at one with the challenges your mother faced. That's all.
I didn't know until the last month or so after the book was written and finished that it made some sense. It seemed crazy to put my mother's story together with my Parkinson's. What am I doing? And yet it just felt like I should do it. And recently I've understood that there's a good connection, solid connection between my family stories and Parkinson's.
Wow, great! Thank you, John, and great to see you.
And to see you.
Thanks, James. Corey, you're next.
Corey Tratner.
Hi. Well, first, I really want to thank you. That not only was beautifully written, but very spiritual and very moving. So I wanted to thank you for that. But my husband has Parkinson's, and I certainly have watched him decline enormously over the past 5 years. And also kind of met a lot of people through him that have Parkinson's. So I wanted to know if you wouldn't mind addressing how you keep your spirits up and stay positive, knowing that this is a very long-term chronic and degenerative disease. Obviously, you know, you've written these absolutely beautiful words, and I was wondering what else you could recommend to people to stay positive.
I'm not so positive. That's one answer. That I get into, get into bad moments. My wife, Sharon, has had to do what you've been doing with your husband and to face that my daily experience isn't always great. I wish it were. I think I'm going to read something, just one half a page. It's about the three-legged dog. I mentioned the three-legged dog in the story. And in a previous story, I'd written this. Have you ever seen a three-legged dog walking free or on a leash, trotting sprightly on 3 legs? Maybe one leg lost to a truck. While the surgery is healing, he may whine for pain, kept from licking at the wound by an uncomfortable lampshade collar. But once the wound heals and the collar is off, he adjusts to the new condition as if there were no loss. It's the way I am. Does he miss the leg? It doesn't seem so. A dog will mourn for a lost master or for the loss of another dog in the same household, but not for a lost leg. He doesn't seem to experience the contrast between now and before. So let me become like a three-legged dog. What should I make of this life? Have always made words. I'd like to be brave, like to be cavalier, at least pretend to myself to be cavalier. But again and again, I fall into monitoring my losses and my potential losses, as if I were a banker of myself. It's a bum investment. I might as well live it up, turn spendthrift, prodigal, profligate. Very nice, very nice. See if you can fool yourself with words, says another part of myself to me. We all know the way we're supposed to respond to a sickness such as Parkinson's, so that at the memorial service, a eulogy can say, he fought his sickness, he never complained. He was kind and generous. He expressed gratitude for the life given him. I'm not going to lie in order to rate a decent eulogy. I don't want to lie to myself, to fake it. Dear God, help me accept what's coming to me. Help me join what's coming as to the strange music of a dance. I want to dance to the new music. You coming through the ballroom door, teach me to dance. Be my partner in the dance. So that's what the only answer I've got.
Wow, that's some answer, John.
Thank you, everybody, very much. Tamara, you had something you wanted to.
There are a couple more people that have their hands up.
Okay.
Don.
Don Bell. Don Bell.
Yes.
Where are you?
I don't know. Okay.
There you go.
Hi, John.
Hello, Gail.
And Gail, thank you so much. You know, I've heard versions of this story many times and read them many times over the year.
That's right.
This is the Ur story of John Clayton.
Yeah.
This is the most beautiful version I've ever heard. Extremely moving. And I think, you know, you're in your late period, like Beethoven or Titian or others. This is the late phase. It's wonderful. So please continue if you can. Find new themes. And you're looking great, even though you're not feeling great. It's wonderful to join you. So thank you so much.
It's a trick. To look great, even though I don't feel great.
No, you
yeah. Thank you, Don.
Okay. It's the old Jackie Clayton.
Karen Barrett.
Yeah, John, that was hi. So great to see you. First of all, it's been too many years.
Yeah.
And you know,
in California, right?
I'm in California. Yes, trying to hold back the bad air from it traveling everywhere. Hopefully, you won't get it.
You're in Santa Cruz?
No longer in Santa Cruz. I'm up in Berkeley, but it's been pretty awful up here. I was in Oregon during the fires too. I had that luck. But I want to bring us back just for a quick moment to our Hebruta together. And how I always learned from you, the beautiful thing about teaching each other. Not only was your expression and your reading just magnificent today, but I'm so interested in what you talk about in terms of a new form, because it felt to me as if you were speaking about a certain way in which your stories had a mind of their own. And instead of fighting with them, as an author sometimes does to try to make it conform to the way we'd like it to be, there was a sense of, you know, it echoed, you're talking about your new form, echoed with the story that you actually read to us in this beautiful way of the fact that, you know, you let your story just be. There's an acceptance that I heard from you about your stories, so that instead of fighting your story, you're changing your story about stories, which
yes, absolutely right.
Just gorgeous. That's just gorgeous. So I was wondering if you could speak to that what is your new story about your stories?
The new story is that I'm being pulled and that there's something taking me somewhere, but I don't know what it is. I was just thinking as you were talking about Rabbi Ben Weiner, he has this same way of starting with a simple story and then complicating it, and you'll never think he's going to get back to that story, and he does. So it's a question of letting the form find me, and that changing the basic narrative at the same time, instead of being the victim or the controller, being opening up to what comes. Opening up to what comes is a literary question, and it's also a spiritual question.
Yes, and it seems that truth is your guide.
Yeah.
At least that's the way I experience it. So that's just a beautiful thing that I think in some ways only comes with the wisdom of age.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, John.
Okay, we have two final questions, and then we will close this wonderful session. I'm going to call on David Levitt.
Hi, John.
There you are.
Yeah.
Hi, John.
Really too. One of the various things I love about you, which comes through so much tonight, is you so fully inhabit all these different aspects of yourself and give them voices, give voice to these different aspects, the dark and the light. And then you do that with characters and as a writer, and then as reading your writing, and it's just beautiful. It's so alive. But what was really fun for me, and I know that in you really well, but what was really fun for me was to actually listen to you portray your mother doing that too, of creating characters and creating voices. And
good, yes.
And I loved that.
Yeah.
But I also have a question, which is, we spoke recently about how much you love the James Baldwin story, Sonny's Blues. And I just wondered if that was anywhere in the background when you created the title of Parkinson's Blues.
I think unconsciously it was, but not consciously. Yeah, but there was something I wanted to get at. Just that the feeling of that story is something which I can keep over one side of my head. It radiates. It radiates, and I can use that connection, even though I'm not like James Baldwin in many other ways. But that's it. For those who don't know the story, Sonny's Blues, it's my favorite story in the world. I mean, literally in the 20th century, it was a great piece of fiction. It's in a collection called Going to Meet the Man, 1959 or 60. Sonny's Blues. So I think I touched on that.
Thank you. And our final question tonight is Edward Feld.
Where are you, Eddie?
Hi. Hi. Actually, the question came from Merle.
Merle, hello, Merle.
Hi. Dawn, I think it's the most extraordinary writing you've done, and the deepest writing you've done. I absolutely love this book.
Thank you.
You know, it's like it's having distilled a lifetime of experience and sorrow and torment and searching. It's such a blessing. And I felt when I read it that it's absolutely a book for all of us. It's a book for everyone. It's not narrowly about specific Parkinson's. It's about the experience of being alive and
coming to grips with life.
Eddie said, coming to grips with life and coming to grips with our aging and our mortality, which every single one of us faces. There's no one I know who I wouldn't want to put this book in their hands.
Thank you, Merle.
Much love.
Wow, that is a lovely, lovely note to end on. I am once again putting a link to the book in the chat so that everybody can have a chance to order it if they want to. Also, this is being recorded and it will be up in about a week on the Wellfleet Library's YouTube channel. So if you have friends and family that didn't get a chance to see it, you can refer them to that Thank you so much. Again, my name is Jennifer Wertkin. I'm the director of the Wellfleet Library. It has been my pleasure to welcome John Clayton here to our virtual library room. I look forward to a time when we will be opening our actual library and having literature here again. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight, and take care, and we will see you soon. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.